for its Level 8 Higher Diploma in Science and Computing starting in February. This is a part-time course, and because it's a Springboard-funded ICT conversion course, it's free or partly funded for eligible participants. Places are limited, so apply now through springboardcourses.ie or visit our website cct.ie.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Just some breaking FA Cup news. The fifth round draw being made as we speak, and without question the tie of the round is Chelsea at home to Manchester United in the fifth round. Chelsea at home to Manchester United in the fifth round of the FA Cup. That draw just made in the last few moments. Elsewhere, Manchester City will travel to either Middlesbrough or Newport, depending who comes through there. Bristol City play Shrewsbury or Wolves. AFC Wimbledon play Millwall. It's Doncaster hosting Crystal Palace. Portsmouth or QPR play Watford. Geez, fairly grim actually, the FA Cup already, isn't it? Chelsea, Man City and Man United are about all that's left, really. Okay, well, Chelsea Man U is the big one in round 5 of the FA Cup. We're turning to GAA, so the Allianz League's kicked off over the weekend. We'll be joined by Tommy Walsh later on to chat hurling. Kerry beat Tyrone 11 points to 7. Galway beat Cavan by 2 points. On the Saturday night, Mayo had a 1 point win over Roscommon, 1-8 to 1-7 in terrible conditions, over 10,000 in Castlebar. There were 8,500 in Clonus to watch Monaghan beat Dublin 2-13 to 1-13. We'll talk about some of the aspects of that game in a moment. But first, Jim Gavin, I think, was in very given form by his usual standards post-match. He doesn't tend to opinionate much on matters beyond the match, but he was asked after talking initially about the game about the GAA and the rules, I suppose, specifically. And even though he's doing this in a very calm way and the tone is very measured, actually, when you hear his quotes here and think about what he's actually saying, it is withering, to say the least. So here's Jim Gavin after the game in Clonus.
I'm probably a little bit disappointed for our second league competition to be an experimental league, but it is what it is. But it's a great workout nonetheless.
Jimmy, on the hand pass rule that's not in place, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd no particular issue with it. First and foremost, I think it needs to be remarked that the and acknowledge the endeavours of the rules committee, the hard work that they put in, and the time and effort that they have volunteered their time to try and make the game better. If there was one thing you'd probably comment on upon it, is that I think there hasn't been from them, or indeed our leadership of the GAA, a real clear vision of what they want Gaelic football to be. And I think until we understand what that is, we'll get this what's going on at the moment, lots of actions without a vision. That's a little bit of a nightmare. So from Dublin's perspective, I articulate my thoughts to the county board, and I don't believe managers should have a soapbox to comment on them, rightly or wrongly. It's up for our own local county boards to make representations on behalf of the county, not on behalf of the one particular team. So I'd no particular issue with it, and whatever our governing bodies say in terms of rules, we just got on with it.
What's your personal opinion on the game? Like, the idea, like, as you say, there needs to be a vision of where it needs to go.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, do you think the game needs changing?
No, I think I don't.
As in the rules, exactly.
Yeah, I don't believe so. But I'd always advocate anything that can, that can incentivise teams. So I think the black card is a really positive incentive for teams to attack. I think some of the plays there, outstanding one or two of the guys maybe taken down towards the end, but I mean in general play, when players are going through in the goal, I think we would have seen in the past they would have been taken down, and obviously Monaghan would have experienced that in some of the championship games they played, so that doesn't happen anymore. And I think that can promote the game in terms of a very positive way, a bit like the sin bin. I would always advocate it.
I get the sense of you that you're not going to spend an awful lot of time in training working around these rules because they're not going to be.
Well, we've 6 games left, and that's just the reality. If personally, I would have just gone out and introduced them, and so you have it. And when you go back to play with your clubs, you have it. And we've players playing Sigerson now on Wednesday. They have a completely different set of rules, and they're two completely different games. And the only thing I heard probably from the rules committee very early on, they were talking about trying to make the game a game of contest, and to me that's probably talking that it's trying to make the game a bit like hurling, and they're completely different games. One, you can accurately pass the ball 70 yards, you can have that in Gaelic football. So they're completely different games with different equipment that's used, and it's probably a wrong comparison, even though we both play both codes. I think that one might be influencing the other. So I think, to go back to my original point, I think until the GAA articulate their vision on what they want Gaelic football to be, then we can understand the reason why these changes come in. But to put a definite or a limitation on hand passes because there's too many hand passes in the game, that doesn't explain why teams are hand passing more than they probably did in the past. So until we get the why from them, I think there'll still be confusion and probably a bit of frustration from some quarters.
Jim Gavin speaking there in Clonus. Given his status in the game, it's a significant intervention, and doubly so when you consider how reluctant he is to intervene and give opinions and be, soapbox, he referenced there.
Yeah.
Given how reluctant he is to do that, it's a doubly significant intervention. No vision from the GAA. No, they've failed to articulate a vision for the game. It's a little bit of a nightmare. He's not happy that the secondary competition has been reduced to something of an experiment. He's not even going to bother implementing tactics to incorporate the mark because, frankly, what's the point? It's gone in 6 games. Sigerson matches are different. And even the too many hand passes, putting a limit on them, you sense that there was no subtlety in that. It was such a... treating the symptom as opposed to the cause. Packed defences ultimately are the cause. And look, to a point, teams are more sophisticated. They're just not going to boot the ball away anyway, and that's a part of the game as well. But packed defences, maybe you could do something about. So he clearly thought limiting the hand passes, there was no subtlety in that change. And then, he did thank the Rules Committee for their efforts, but he did reference the fact that they had talked about more contests and how that's a real nod to hurling. That's what makes hurling so great in some ways, those launched balls. And he said you just can't do that with these 2 games. So all in all, despite the very measured tone, it's like a devastatingly withering assessment of how football is being treated right now.
And I think it's all the more effective because now this is his 7th year in charge of Dublin. How many times has he come out and said anything as forceful as that? Like it's 3 or 4 times I can remember. He's made a few interventions over the years, but very, very rare. So I think it's quite, I don't know if calculate is the right word, but like he did pick his moment. Like when he was asked the questions, he had this in his head and he thought, I want to get this stuff out there. And he has that status now. Like you've seen, I think you probably noticed it the last few months. Brian Cody has been a lot more outspoken about the way clubs are being treated, what the direction GAA is going, than he has been about GAA matters for much of the last 20 years. And I think these guys, when they realise the status and the power and the weight that their words carry, I think they feel that they can be a force for positive change. And I think there is a lot of frustration out there, and there's a lot of misleading stuff like like Joe Brawley was bringing up a thing last night about how the mark was supposed to favour Kieran Donaghy type full forwards. That was a stated aim, and Joanne Cantwell cut across him and said, where was that? And I looked at it, there's no stated aim. That isn't a stated aim. The mark, you can catch the ball off your toes and it's still an attacking mark, or on your chest. But people are putting their own stamp on what they want the rule to be. But you have to actually look at what are the actual rules that they're bringing in. And I wonder as well, like there was this perception that some of the rules were there to clip Dublin's wings a bit. So I wonder, is he possibly reacting to that a bit? Like some people did think, the changes to kick-out rule, and Dublin have very much gone for possession game the last 2 or 3 years. So like the hand pass rule would have scuppered that slightly. So maybe that got his hackles up a bit. But I thought he made a lot of sense, and there is a lot to be said that there is a lot of people out there asking what is the GAA's vision, and you saw that last week. And the word disconnect keeps being used, but there is substance to that disconnect. A lot of people do feel it.
Yeah. Regarding the game itself, I mean, Monaghan exemplified best of anyone over the weekend just how effective the mark can be, and it's not in the traditional Kieran Donaghy way.
Yeah.
I've had what a lot of people have described as the Andy Moran type run.
Yeah.
And we all know that run where he's sprinting back and forth. I mean, those pop passes into chest there transform the value of possession in that moment. Whereas before, Andy Moran is facing the sideline back to goal and has one, if not two people haranguing him. Now it's almost a certain point.
Yeah.
And like that, completely transformative. And Monaghan claimed 9 offensive marks yesterday. They scored 1-3 from the resulting play. It was very notable that Dublin only scored 1 point from their offensive marks. Now, of course, they have a possession-based game and they are wonderful exponents of keeping the ball with the hand pass, but they can kick a football too.
Yeah.
And based on Gavin's post-match comments there, yes, they're just off a cruise and they're only back 2 weeks, so they're probably dusting off the cobwebs a touch. But secondly, they've clearly put no emphasis on getting to grips with the mark, because what is the point?
Yeah, well, that's this is where you come back to your process and you're talking about taking each game as it comes or each competition as it comes, but this just makes it very clear that it's all about the championship for Dublin, that the league doesn't really matter, that it's all about the 5 in a row, because these rules can't come into this year's championship. Whereas Monaghan seemed, to me watching it on, Monaghan have put a fair amount of work into working the marks, and that was the difference between the two teams yesterday, Monaghan's use of the marks. But Dublin... rightly, I think Dublin is saying, what's the point? We can't use these this year. Like, Monaghan might go through the league, and this is really effective, and then they go in against Cavan in Breffni Park, which is always a really tight game between them and Monaghan and Cavan, and they can't use those rules. So you're going, what's the point?
Well, they'll hit these little pop passes in, and then they'll be swallowed up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything Gavin said there, I think, makes total sense. It's
I
hard
thought
to
the
argue
attacking mark looked good yesterday, but I think... they need to be taken quicker. Like, I think out the field, the mark has to be taken within 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that same stricture
15 seconds, I read, closer into goal.
15 is too much for me. I think it's just slowing it down a bit. I think 5 is enough. Like, because 15, if you're 25 yards out, you're not going to miss. So just put a bit more pressure on the forward, I think.
Well, regardless, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how those comments are received, because it's fairly damning when the football manager with the highest status in the country, really, the most successful at the moment, I guess Mickey Hart's the longest serving, but when he's saying there's been no vision articulated from GAA leadership about what kind of game they want.
Yeah.
And he's basically damning, their hand passes limit was the most basic thing they could have dreamt up. There's too many hand passes, let's limit them.
Yeah, and that's come in, that's been trialled at least twice before. It's not very original. And there is this perception that they're reactive. They just react to what pundits rant about, and then they try and appease the pundits.
Yeah, and the notion that these players have to go and play Sigerson, completely different rules, is mad as well. On Diarmuid Connolly, by the way, he was asked about Connolly's potential return. He said, it's like any player who volunteers their time for playing inter-county football. Those choices that they make are purely those choices, and if players want to come back, we'll be delighted to have them. Pressed further on whether that was an indication Connolly didn't want to return to the inter-county scene, Gowan said, no, that's not what I said. So we're none the wiser, really.
No, and he was asked about Connolly after the All-Ireland final and at the Leinster Championship launch last year as well. And the answers he gave were similarly oblique. He hasn't really given a straight answer on this. And from what I gather, it's quite unlikely that Diarmuid Connolly will be involved this year. And I think that's a huge gamble if that does turn out to be the case, because if you look at last year, they didn't need Diarmuid Connolly. They won every game comfortably, bar the qualifier or the Super Race game in Omagh, which is still, they kept Tyrone at arm's length. Whereas if you look at the last really tight do-or-die championship battle they had was against Mayo in the 2070 final, and they needed him to win it. So you can read too much into last year. They didn't have that kind of challenge last year.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't have it this year, but I think 5 in a row always bring pressure. And I think they will. I think they might get a few of those challenges this year. They went 4 points down with 20 minutes to go yesterday, and he made a forward sub. He brought Conor McHugh on for Dean Rock. And Conor McHugh is a decent forward. He would get in most inter-county teams. He was under 21 player of the championship a few years ago. But if you were an opponent or the back that has to pick him up, you would far rather be marking Conor McHugh than Diarmuid Connolly. That to me makes no
totally
sense. From a football point of view, Diarmuid Connolly should be there. So
you say a huge gamble. We don't know why he's not in the squad.
Yeah.
Is the point, and that's where we almost have to draw a line. For all we know, Jim Gavin's on the phone.
There was an interesting interview with Kieran McFall, I think, from Derry, I think, in the Irish News last week, and he played with Diarmuid Connolly in Boston last summer.
Yeah. But
he was talking about his preparations. He did yoga every single morning, and this is playing in the Boston Championship, which isn't it's not elite level, but he says this guy was preparing very seriously and took his football very seriously. Yeah. So who knows? Like, it might be. People often go back to remember. I think it was the Mayo drawn game a couple of years ago, where there was a sideline kick that Kieran Kilkenny was about to take, and Connolly took it off him, and he missed. And it's often been read. People have read into that. Was that something that bugged Gavin? Like, that wasn't about thinking of the collective. It seemed to be grabbing a bit of glory.
God, this is some good January speculation, isn't it?
This is champion winter talk.
Just open rumour on the radio.
Yeah.
Tommy Welsh is with us. Evening, Tommy.
Good evening, lads.
You were delighted, I would think, to have your hurling back this weekend. The winter's over.
Yeah, we're all happy again.
Did I hear rightly that you reckon Waterford are going to win the All-Ireland?
Yeah, listen, obviously it's very difficult to predict it, but yeah, I do. I have a hunch for it was before last weekend, Waterford and Clare, and Waterford to nudge it. Well, now listen, as I said, it could be any of one of probably 9 teams, but that's where my hunch goes. For the reason for it is they had such a short summer last year, and they were decimated by injuries in that Munster kind of league championship type format. So it was kind of like a written off year really from the minute that started. So just with a new manager, usually with a new manager, we already have seen it with Tipperary, we've seen it with Waterford the weekend. They kind of nearly get a new lease of life because everyone is out to impress and everyone believes they have a chance. So, and they have the hurlers, because we've seen what they did about 2 or 3 years ago in the Under-21 Championship, Joe, where, they obliterated nearly every team in it. There was very little close matches. So, yeah, I have a hunch, but as I said, like, any 1 in 9 teams could do it. But, yeah, I'll go with Waterford.
Well, listen, if you have called this on January the 28th, we'll play this back to you in August. We'll do it. You'll be even more of a god. So, I mean, the league is interesting this year, especially in hurling. Like last year, the round robin series seemed to catch a few teams. Michael Ryan said that it was very difficult to, prepare and give everything to the league and then be ready to go again for the round robin series in Munster. I always remember him making that point quite strongly. And so this year you have the round robin and you have the fact that there's no relegation. So what do you think that's going to mean for the league in hurling this year?
Yeah, so I think the last 2 or 3 years, Joe, the league was played like a championship as regards intensity-wise, and that's the fans, the management and the players. Towards now, it's played with the intensity of everybody trying to do their best and everybody trying to win the match, but not with the same pressures. So what you'll see is probably, a little bit looser hurling probably, and you'll see managers, the most important thing from my point of view is you'll see managers giving guys a chance. So like I was in Nolan Park yesterday with the family, and like it was great to see so many, like, Kilkenny and Cork were missing so many players, but it gave so many guys chances to impress. And I think that's what managers are going to try and do in this league, is that, yes, they'll go and try and win every match, but it's not the be-all and end-all. The be-all and end-all, I'd say, is to find players that they'll be able to use in the championship. And, I think the 2 matches was at the weekend, the one in Thurles and the one yesterday in Nolan Park, I think the 4 teams have definitely found players that they'll be able to use in the championship.
Who were you impressed with Tipperary, Tommy?
In Tipperary, sure, theirs is probably slightly a bit different, Kieran, because what they're looking for, Liam Sheedy has said, is they're looking to build kind of the structure of their team, that by the end of the league, that he will have that in place. So he had Pádraig back full back, he had Ronan centre back, and they were playing in many different positions the last few years, and they impressed. Now, there's going to be different challenges ahead, because I suppose it was that bit easier for a backline in Thurles Saturday night because they were playing with 1 extra defender, and that happened to be Pádraig, who was probably one of the best readers in the game. So there will be different challenges especially if they play the likes of a Cork or that, where it's 6 versus 6, maybe the wide open spaces. But I think for who did they find? I think Jake Morris, every match he gets under his belt will be more important, because it is hard. He's been very impressive under 21 last year. He's a great colleges player, but it is difficult to make that transition and quickly. So the more matches you can get under your belt, the more beneficial it'll be to the team. So I was very impressed with any ball that he got in here in the weekend.
Yeah. Where does he play, Tommy? Sorry.
Corner forward.
Corner forward, okay.
And one typical ball came in, like, back in when you're a young lad, you're always told give a low fast ball into the corner forward. Well, if that's bouncing kind of in front of you, Joe, it's actually a difficult enough ball if it's coming at speed, especially the weekend when the ground was greasy. But Porrigamar came out loose, and like they've changed their game as well. They're definitely trying to find players as opposed to launching it every time. And because they're adapting to the new game. And Porrigamar came out with a ball, and he hit a lovely ball into the corner. But I just knew it was fast and it was low, and while it looked a lovely ball, I'd say it was quite difficult to control if your touch wasn't right, especially this time of year. But Jake just took it, and lovely one touch into the hand, turned out to the stand, to the old stand in Thurles, and over the bar. Made it look simple, but I think that's what the really good players are able to do, Joe. And I was very impressed with Jake.
Yeah, do you think we're seeing a move away from sweepers, Tommy? That Waterford seem to definitely have gone away from it a bit. Like maybe Clare, Wexford, are they the only two left standing now?
Yeah, I think that the way it's gone now is I think you have to be able for every game. So you can't go out with just the mindset of having a sweeper, right? We're a sweeper type team, and them teams don't like us referring to the sweeper type teams, but they definitely, they do have a sweeper, and that's the way I think it is. But I think we'll see teams moving away from just having one style. So in one match, we might even during the course of a match, you might see for 20 minutes they might have a sweeper, then they're 15 versus 15. And Liam Sheedy definitely spoke about that last week, that it is definitely gone away from the conventional, everyone in their positions and best man wins the ball. You have to be able to adapt, and I think we're going to see a movement away from that. Like I thought Tipperary and Kilkenny especially, no longer are they launching the ball every time when they're free. They're now trying to pick out a guy. Even the Kilkenny guys the weekend, it was on the highlights even last night where they did 3 or 4 moves, which is unknown really for the Kilkenny guys, in the backs, out to midfield, and then they lost it. But beforehand then you'd hear roars from the crowd saying just drive it in. But they didn't know. We understand that you have to adapt to the new game, and they have to be able to try out things, and you make a mistake, on you go again and try something different. So are we gone away from the sweeper? I don't think so, but what you'll see is I think no one will stick for the full 70 minutes, I would imagine.
Before you go, Tony Kelly's sending off, it seemed, had a big bearing in the game, and it's been much talked about, and the referee Colm Lyons has been roundly criticised by pretty much everyone, you would have to say. Willie Barrett, who's the referees development chairman, came out last year after the hurling leagues, and he was talking about a number of referees and a number of people in the game feeling that they wanted to get rid of these kind of challenges. He said if they're on the shoulder or chest high, then it's a yellow card, but when they're head high, hit into the face, it's a red card. So I must say I have a good degree of sympathy for Colm Lyons. I don't think there was anything deliberate or malicious on Tony Kelly's part, but everybody's criticised the decision quite significantly. If you're going in at speed on a player and you have your hand up and you connect with his face guard or his face, how, is it that outrageous that it was a red card, or is that just allowed in the game? Is that fine? Like we're off we go for the next year?
Yeah. You're probably asking the wrong lad here.
Well, I know. I mean, I don't know what you'd have to do to get a red card off Tommy Welsh.
I understand your question. Yeah. The thing here is, Joe, it's Colm Lyons. I kind of felt bad the Saturday night after. I didn't mean that, and I felt it wasn't a sending off, but I didn't feel it was Colm Lyons' fault. Or any referee's fault. I think, as you said, Willie Barrett came out, and the referees are told that listen, high challenges are that obviously. So many games on television now, and there's so many people seeing them, and especially young kids, they want to make sure that it's as clean as possible. But I'd love to see the referees, and no blame whatsoever on Colm Lyons. This is the way referees I believe are told to referee the game, high challenges and that. But I believe that they should be given the freedom to make up their mind whether it was a dangerous challenge, whether it was on purpose, or whether the player meant it. But I just thought in that instance, Tony Kelly came in really quick. So he was told they were probably, they were so poor in the first half. They probably, at half time, their manager probably had a few words with them. Lads, we want to see the intensity cranked up. We want to see closing, like the Tipperary lads are closing down our guys clearing the ball. So he tore into Porrigamar, and Porrig gave him kind of a sidestep, and his hands were just up. But I can understand where, I know people are 50-50 on this, but if you're looking at it, you can say yes, it was a high challenge. But I think any players that are playing the game realise how fast it is. So he came in with the best of intentions, and then a hand went up, and because Pádraig Maher went down, then obviously it draws the irks probably of the Tipperary sport, I suppose, in that instance. So you can see both sides of it, but I just think the referee should be given the freedom to maybe hold on a minute here now, have a little consult with the linesman. What do you think? Was it dangerous or what? And then make the decision then, as opposed to just everything black and white. Now, just to kind of on the sendings off, like the one in Wexford, with the Wexford Limerick lads, Joe. Like, I can understand the referees in that instance. Well, back in the day, no. Listen, on we get a bit of shoulder and a bit of pushing. But after everything that went on during the winter, with all the rows up in the banks and inside in dugouts and all, so they want to cut out that. And if you have to make an example of people, the third man in and all that, well then listen, it is unfortunate. No one really did that in Tuva below in Wexford, but we want to send out the message clearly. Any of these melees, there'll be people sent off. And probably, after that the weekend, I think each manager, whether you're Brian Cody or John Myler or Liam Sheedy, will say, lads, if there's anything going on, third man in, you're gone. So don't let me see it. You'll be the man to blame. The precedent has been set below in Wexford Park. So I can understand that one, Joe, if you understand me.
Yeah, no, perfect sense. Well argued. Great to have you on again. Thanks a million.
Great stuff, lads. Best of luck.
Right, we'll see you. Tommy Walsh. It would break Tommy's heart to send off any man for anything.
Proper hurling man.
Yes, yeah. It was an interesting test case, though. Anthony Daly said, well, that won't be a sending off in August.
Yeah.
So if the GAA are serious about it, it's the next few weeks where they can make examples and stamp it out of the game, or in a...
Yeah, but you often find at the start of the league or else the start of the provincial championship, they clamp down something and then they don't. It's not sustained.
So it depends how serious they are.
Yeah,
I mean, 3-4 weeks they won't have to deal with it in August because it'll be stamped out. But if they renege on it in the next week or two, sure, then we'll talk again in 2020.
Yeah.
Thanks a million for coming in.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it. Kieran Cunningham there, and we'll take a short break.
Off the ball on News Talk.
Mattresses-delivered.ie. Nationwide delivery within 48 hours for free. That's mattresses-delivered.ie. Lowest prices guaranteed. Don't forget the hyphen. T's and C's apply.
Having a flutter? Top tip, quinbet.com. Ireland's newest online sportsbook and casino. For all your horse racing, football, casino and more, Quinbet has you covered. With live in-play markets on mobile, PC and app.